The echidna, that strange Australian animal covered in spikes, has a four-headed reproductive organ. Since females have a reproductive tract with two branches, using all four heads at once would hurt them. So during mating, the male shuts down two of the heads and uses only the other two, alternating them as if they were spare cartridges. The Lamborghini was born from an insult. Ferruccio Lamborghini was a millionaire tractor manufacturer who bought a Ferrari, but the clutch kept breaking. He went to complain personally to Enzo Ferrari, who arrogantly told him that a tractor manufacturer didn't know how to drive his cars. Ferruccio got so furious that he founded his own supercar brand exclusively to crush Ferrari. The blobfish, that famous pink melted fish voted the ugliest animal in the world, is actually not like that. This fish lives more than 3,000 feet underwater, where the pressure is brutal. When fishermen bring it up quickly to the surface, decompression causes its tissues to expand and burst. In its natural habitat, it's a completely normal, muscular fish. In the year 2020, Luxembourg became the first nation in the world to make all public transportation completely free. Trains, trams, and buses are 100% free for both citizens and tourists. They literally abolished tickets and inspectors across the country. The goal was for millionaires to leave their sports cars at home and reduce pollution. The Segovia Aqueduct has stood for 2,000 years, surviving wars and earthquakes. And the most amazing thing is that it doesn't have a single gram of cement or glue holding its 20,000 granite blocks together. The stones are carved with such millimetric perfection that they stay united solely by the weight and the mathematical balance of gravitational force. The original gazpacho wasn't red. Oh, if you traveled back to Roman times or Al-Andalus in Spain and asked for one, they would serve you a white soup. It was made only with bread, garlic, olive oil, vinegar, and almonds, which today we call ajo blanco. Tomatoes didn't exist in Europe until Columbus arrived in the Americas in 1492, and it took centuries for someone to add them to the recipe. The ski lift doesn't have a seat belt on purpose. If a massive avalanche occurs, a cable breaks, or a snowstorm freezes the system, rescue teams or you yourself need to be able to jump into the snow quickly. If you had a seat belt stuck by the ice, you would freeze to death in the chair without being able to escape. It's a deliberate survival measure. The blue morpho butterfly is an optical scam artist. It's famous for its stunning electric blue wings. But it doesn't have a drop of blue pigment in its body. Its wings are actually dark brown. The microscopic scales are shaped like trees that trap light and only bounce the blue waves toward your eyes. If you drop a bit of alcohol on it, it turns brown instantly. If space weren't a vacuum and sound could travel freely, the sun would be absolutely deafening. The constant explosions on its surface would sound on Earth like a 100-decibel siren without stopping. It would be the equivalent of having the noise of a nightclub or a chainsaw constantly going on for 24 hours a day, every day of the year. The planarian is a flatworm that is practically immortal. If you cut it into 10 pieces, each piece will regenerate a new head and tail, creating 10 different worms that also retain the memories of the original. And now scientists use them as laboratory models to study regeneration, with the hope of applying these concepts to regenerative medicine in humans. Surgeons wear green or blue, not white, for a very specific scientific reason. If a surgeon spends hours looking at bright red blood and then looks up at a white coat, they experience an optical illusion that blinds them for a few seconds. Green and blue are opposite to red on the color wheel, so looking at them refreshes the eye and cancels out the blinding flash. Poppies have disturbing biology. Their seeds can lie dormant in the soil for up to 80 years. They only germinate when the soil is violently disturbed. That's why during World War I, when bombs exploded in the battlefields, poppies bloomed by the millions over graves and trenches, forever becoming a symbol of war. The giraffe has blood pressure twice as high as a human's in order to pump blood to its head. What's fascinating is that it has a system of safety valves and a spongy network of vessels at the base of its brain that slows the flow when it bends down to drink. Without this mechanism, the pressure of lowering its head would cause its brain to explode or faint instantly. The ferret can fit into pipes half the width of its body thanks to its spine with unique joints. These allow it to fold its body 180 degrees inside a narrow tunnel. If it enters a dead-end burrow, it doesn't need to go in reverse. Its spine folds like a rubber hose, and it walks out head first as if nothing happened. When you pull out a white hair, another white one simply grows back in the same spot because the follicle has already stopped producing melanin. Pulling it out doesn't solve anything because the problem is at the root. In fact, repeatedly plucking hairs can permanently damage the follicle, causing it not to grow back. The saying that if you pull one, 7 will come out is completely false. African gray parrots have intelligence equivalent to a 5-year-old child. They can solve puzzles, use tools, understand the concept of zero, lie on purpose, and even comfort other parrots that are sad. Alex, the most famous parrot studied by scientists, could identify 50 different objects, 7 colors, 5 shapes, and count up to 6. Queen bees mate just once in their life with between 12 and 15 males in a single nuptial flight. Each male dies immediately afterward because his reproductive organ explodes and gets stuck in the queen. She stores the sperm from all these dead males and uses it over the next 5 years to lay millions of eggs. Wolves can eat up to 20 kilograms of meat in a single sitting, which is the equivalent of 20% of their body weight in one go. It would be like you eating 33 pounds of meat at once. Then they can go up to 2 weeks without eating again. Their stomach expands like a balloon, and they don't eat like this out of gluttony, but because they don't know when they'll get their next meal. The Chicago River has flowed backwards since the year 1900. The city carried out one of the largest engineering feats in history by permanently reversing its river's course. Originally, it emptied into Lake Michigan where the drinking water was, but since the river was full of waste, they built a system of locks and canals to redirect the water toward the Mississippi. The stapedius muscle is the smallest skeletal muscle in the human body, measuring just 1 millimeter. It's located in the middle ear and tightens instantly when you hear a very loud sound to stop the movement of the stapes bone. It acts as a biological volume limiter to protect you from hearing loss caused by sudden, unexpected noises. The Arctic tern holds the record for the longest migration in the animal kingdom. It travels from the Arctic to Antarctica and back every year, covering about 43,000 miles. Due to this pattern, it experiences 2 summers a year and sees more daylight than any other creature on the planet, living in a state of almost constant daylight for most of its life. The albatross can sleep while flying. It has the ability to lock its wing joints in an open position to glide without using any muscle effort. This allows it to take micro naps of seconds without falling into the water during its thousands of kilometers-long trips across the ocean. Its wingspan can reach up to 11 feet. Switzerland does not have an official capital. Although Bern is where the government is, and everyone calls it the capital, Swiss law does not give it that title. The country was founded as a confederation of highly independent cantons, and they decided not to name a federal capital to avoid giving more importance to one city over the others. Bern is simply the federal city maintaining the political balance of the country. When the Tasmanian devil suffers from a unique contagious cancer that is transmitted through bites to the face when they fight for food. Cancer cells implant in the wound, and the tumor grows rapidly, deforming the jaw and making it hard to feed. This disease has decimated entire populations and forced intense conservation measures to save the species. Snakes can keep biting for up to an hour after they die. A snake's severed head will keep reacting reflexively, and its fangs inject venom automatically when they detect heat or pressure. There are documented cases of people dying after touching the heads of venomous snakes that were 30 minutes dead. The brain may die, but the nerves keep functioning. Reserve parachutes are packed by certified professionals who sign the package with their name and license number. If your main parachute fails and you open the emergency one, the person who packed it left their signature inside. If it fails due to negligence, that person can go to jail. That's why parachute packers earn huge salaries and have a near-perfect safety record. The town of Whittier in Alaska has almost its entire population living in one building. The Begich Towers houses 214 out of the town's 272 inhabitants. It has apartments, a school, a hospital, a post office, a store, and a police station, all under the same roof. They can spend the entire winter without leaving because tunnels connect the building to the rest of the town. A restaurant projects its dishes in 3D into the table so you can see the food before it arrives, and it's usually done with mapping projection. The most famous example is a show like Le Petit Chef, where an animated mini-chef appears cooking on your plate as if the table were a screen. The fun part is that they mix history, visuals, and the actual dish so that you feel like you're in a movie while dining. And a painting hung in a hallway was valued at millions because it turned out to be by Cimabue. And what's shocking is that it was in a regular house as if it were just another painting. In the famous case, the work was estimated in the millions before the auction and ended up selling for a much higher amount. It's the kind of story that's frightening. Something historic hung on the wall for years and no one knew. Haotuwan, a Chinese village, was abandoned and nature swallowed it. And it's often known as Haotuwan in the Shaanxi Islands region. What's incredible is the visual aspect. Entire buildings covered in vegetation, as if the green had eaten the walls. It became famous because it looks like a movie set, but it's real, which is why it attracts photographers and curious onlookers. Mr. Blue Sky by ELO is often called the happiest song, but beware, this title often comes from surveys or viral rankings, not from a single definitive study. Still, it makes sense that people vote for it this way because it's bright, fast, and gives you a feeling of a sunny day in your head. It's a song that works like a mood button, even though the happiest in the world depends on who's measuring it and how. Smoke, the grumpy cat, is a celebrity with an online store and an Instagram account. And this kind of character works perfectly on social media. The grumpy face becomes a brand. People share it because it looks like the cat is judging everything. And the less it reacts to cuteness or ridiculousness, the funnier it becomes. The oldest pencil in the world is a lipstick. And then what's crazy is that we're talking about ancient cosmetics, not a modern school pencil. These findings show that thousands of years ago, they were already mixing pigments with fats to create something similar to lipstick. So it wasn't just survival, it was also about aesthetics, identity, and ritual. Manchester created special lanes for people using their phones while walking, and what's striking is that many times it was more of an eye-catching action or campaign than a permanent rule. The idea was to highlight the real problem, people colliding while looking at the screen. It works as an image because it seems like a joke, but they actually did it in a very busy area. The car designed by Homer Simpson was brought to life, and that's why it became one of those internet oddities that seems fake until you see it. Many times, when they are fan replicas of old cars copying the exaggerated look of the show, the best part is the joke. The design was purposely absurd, and still someone said, "Yes, I'll do it." A time-lapse of a pepper plant in 115 days shows something you never see fully in real life. Its growth as if it were in fast mode. You can see how it searches for light, how the stem changes, how flowers appear, and then the fruit. The visual punch comes when you realize that it seems slow, but actually a lot happens. It's just that your eye doesn't register it. Jupiter has lunar eclipses very often because it has many moons. and some orbit it very quickly. For example, Io completes a rotation around Jupiter in about 42.5 hours, which causes shadows and alignments to happen again and again. Sometimes you can see chained events, as if the system were an eclipse machine. George Harmony recreates movie sounds like Ratatouille using drums, voice, and everyday objects, which is essentially the world of Foley. What's striking is the simplicity. A bag, some wood, a hit, and your brain translates it to kitchen, steps, boiling sauce. Seeing behind the scenes ruins the magic a little, but it also makes you respect sound design 1,000 times more. Look at this 16th century prophet, whose cryptic predictions are still debated because the trick lies in the ambiguity. In the typical case, like Nostradamus, the phrases are vague enough for people to fit them to events after they happen. That's why there are always two eternal sides. He predicted it versus they interpreted it afterward. Chong and Eng, the original conjoined twins, were born in what is now Thailand, when their fame led to the use of Siamese as a label for a long time. Today the preferred term is conjoined twins, but the historical nickname stuck because of the cultural impact they had. Their life also shows what shows in medicine were like in that century, with very harsh things seen as entertainment. Jonathan the Tortoise has been giving lessons on longevity for over 186 years from St. Helena Island, and he is considered the longest living known land animal. What's impressive is not just his estimated age, but everything he's been through historically. He lives at Plantation House and remains a kind of local celebrity, like a legend with a shell. Your eyes exercise more than your legs because they make an absurd amount of daily movements to scan the world. Most are micro quick jumps, not smooth movements, when your brain corrects them so you don't see everything shaking. In other words, you live with an automatic stabilizer in your head and don't even notice. 80s apps would have been very different if they had existed back then because the hardware dictated the design, adapting to the limitation. Few colors, huge fonts, simple icons, and screens that didn't forgive detail. Today we call it retro, but at that time it was the best possible with what was available. There is a robot called Prayer that writes and prays autonomously, and it is often presented more as an art piece than as a real religious replacement. The idea is to make you think, if a machine can generate prayers, what part of the ritual is faith and what part is form? Projects like the Prayer are described as reflections on modern spirituality using AI and performance. Elephants seem huge, but a blue whale's tongue weighs more than they do, and that fact breaks the mental scale. Because you're not comparing big animal to big animal, you're comparing a part of the body with an entire animal. It's the best example for understanding that a blue whale is literally in a different league. Rumpology is the strange art of reading the buttocks like a crystal ball, and it usually appears as a pseudoscience, like palm reading but in meme mode. The idea is to look at shapes, lines, and folds and make conclusions about personality or the future. Something totally debatable and more of a spectacle. The funny part is that there are people offering it as a service, as if it were a normal consultation. Now, a Canadian goose has up to 25,000 feathers, and most aren't the pretty outer feathers, but down feathers that keep it warm like a winter coat. This insulation allows them to endure cold and icy water without drama, and on top of that, they molt regularly as if they were renewing their coat each season. The door of the Alcabasa monastery was so narrow that it prevented monks from getting fat. But this story often circulates as a viral myth. Most likely, the narrow door has practical explanations for the building and access, and then people added the moral story of gluttony. It's one of those perfect legends, simple, funny, and easy to share. Obsidian, that volcanic rock, can be sharper than a scalpel, and that's why there are obsidian blades used in very specific surgical contexts. The key is the microscopic edge. It can cut very cleanly, and there are studies comparing healing and tissue response to steel. The problem is it's fragile, so it doesn't replace regular scalpels in everything. But as a fact, it's crazy. That clock at Amsterdam airport that looks like it's painted in real time is an art illusion. You swear there's someone inside drawing the hands, but it's actually a carefully crafted video that makes it look live. The trick works because the camera and the human gesture trick the brain, giving you a sense of continuous presence. And that's what's genius. An object as normal as a clock turned into, how did they do this? Superman originally didn't fly. He was the famous leap tall buildings in a single bound, which defined his vibe. More athletic beast than rocket. Later, in animated shorts from the 40s, they gave him flight because animating constant jumps looked weird and was harder, and that idea ended up spreading to all versions. In other words, his most iconic power was consolidated by a practical animation decision, not by magic in the lore. The story of Elon Musk programming his first game at age 12 is one of those tales told as the villain or genius origin. A kid writing code while others were playing with stickers. It's said that the game was called Blaster and that he sold it for $500, which seems small today, but at that stage it's more of a proof of obsession than business. The juicy part is imagining him learning to program with the mindset of finish it and publish it so early. Twinkie was a record-breaking star popping balloons, but the fine detail is this. The current record is 28.22 seconds for 100 balloons, and before that, there were slower marks like Twinkie's at 39.08. So the story is perfect for a video. First the dog that breaks it, then someone else comes and makes it even more absurd, like the balloons were personal enemies. In Castaway, Tom Hanks made a real physical transformation, and that's why production was paused. They filmed part before, stopped, and resumed when he lost weight and changed his look so the passage of time would feel authentic. The break was so long that the director used the same team to film another movie during the pause, meaning the movie literally has a year in between. And you can tell it's not makeup, it's real body and real time. School buses are yellow because the idea is for them to scream, "Here I am," even with fog, rain, or poor visibility, and for the contrast with dark letters to be easy to read. The color became standard, not for aesthetics, but for safety and instant recognition, like, you see it and stop. It's basically emergency branding, but applied to children. The phrase, "he's a friend from work" in Thor, Ragnarok feels improvised because it was born that way, or as a contribution from a Make-A-Wish kid on set and ended up in the movie. That's why the joke works so well. It sounds like something anyone would say to ease the tension during a giant fight. And on top of that, it's one of those details that gives humanity to a blockbuster, like a hidden wink. That albino reddish seal with blue eyes became famous because it's so rare, and just for that reason, there's concern. In social animals, looking different can mean rejection or being left outside the group. In other words, what for us is, "Wow, how beautiful," for the colony might mean "doesn't fit in." The story hits because it mixes cuteness with real risk, like the ugly duckling version of Icy Seas. The perfect frozen bird sounds like an instant cold wave. But the closest and real version is even more impressive. They found a bird from the Ice Age preserved in permafrost, tens of thousands of years old, so well preserved that it looked recent. It didn't freeze suddenly yesterday. It's that the ice protected it from deterioration for millennia, like a natural capsule. And from that, they were able to analyze DNA and reconstruct part of its history. The glass-winged butterfly, Greta Otto, seems like a digital trick, but it's biology. It has fewer opaque scales in certain areas and uses nanostructures that reduce reflections, as if its wing had anti-glare built in. This helps it disappear in flight because it doesn't reflect light like a normal wing. It's literally camouflaged by transparency, a flying jewel that becomes hard to aim with your sight. In 1924, they held human chess in Leningrad, and it was a spectacle. Giant pieces, people acting as pieces, and thousands watching as if it were a sport. It's said to have lasted for hours, and the moves were transmitted so that the pieces moved on the giant board, like tactical theater. The beautiful thing is that chess, which is usually quiet and small table, turned into a public event, pure Soviet show. The monarch butterflies of the fourth generation, the famous Methuselah generation, live much longer because they enter a kind of biological pause. They eat, gather energy, and don't reproduce right away. That's why they can survive for months and make the Great Migration, as if their mission was to be the traveling group of the year. While the other generations live for weeks, this one can last half a year or more if the weather allows. The sand vipers are camouflage masters. They bury themselves by moving like they're swimming under the sand, leaving only their eyes and nostrils exposed. They wait still, and when prey passes by, they strike in a second. It's a perfect trick for hunting and also for avoiding being seen by a predator. Japan is pushing hard for the idea of flying cars, eVTOL, like electric aerial taxis. There are already prototypes and tests, and there are public plans to launch urban services in the next decade. For example, Tokyo has introduced a plan to launch aerial taxis by 2030, and companies like SkyDrive are showing prototypes and advances with commercial operation goals before that date. In other words, it's not science fiction, it's a project with a timeline and partners. What's the idea that the heart could shoot a stream of blood up to 10 meters is often repeated as a viral fact, but it depends on how you imagine it and the real physics of a jet. Normal blood pressure is high, yes, but a clean vertical jet usually doesn't reach that far under real conditions. Still, the idea helps to understand something simple. The heart is a powerful pump, and a damaged artery can expel blood in pulses with a lot of energy. Lucille Randon, Sister André, was a French nun who became the oldest person in the world while alive and died at the age of 118. She lived through wars, epidemics, and enormous changes in the 20th and 21st centuries. Yet she still kept simple routines and a sense of humor. Her case became famous because she was literally a piece of history walking around. A bear entering a house for a snack sounds like a joke, but it happens. Bears have an incredible sense of smell, and if they catch the scent of food or trash, they'll try their luck. In many places across North America, black bears approach residential areas when they find easy sources of food. And here comes a surreal moment. You're in your house, and nature rings your doorbell without asking for permission. Seeing a wave from below is like looking at a living wall of water and light. The top part becomes a curtain that folds, and everything vibrates with bubbles. From that perspective, you understand why a wave can be both beautiful and dangerous at the same time. And when it breaks, the world becomes foam in an instant. The Egyptians worshiped cats for several reasons, but one key reason was Bastet, a goddess strongly associated with home protection and the idea of care. During many periods, cats were so respected that they were mummified, and their image appeared everywhere in art and amulets. And yes, there are symbolic connections to the solar power, through ideas like the Eye of Ra, sometimes related to feline goddesses. There is a very rare sport that seems invented by someone who said, "I want to fight, but I also want to do tricks." It's called combat juggling. The idea mixes juggling with physical contact, balance, and strategy because it's not only about winning the clash, but also holding the technique without losing control. It's like the circus and professional wrestling cross paths on a corner. Sea anemones are biologically immortal because they don't age. They can live for hundreds of years by dividing and regenerating infinitely. They don't die from old age. They only perish if something eats them or if an environmental disaster occurs. They are like underwater flowers that could technically live forever if no one bothers them or alters their natural environment. If you drank seawater to survive in the ocean, you would die faster than from thirst. Seawater has 3 times more salt than your blood. Your kidneys need fresh water to filter out the salt and expel it, so you would end up using more water than you drank just to process the salt. You would dehydrate more quickly, as if drinking liquid poison. The toaster is a hidden fire hazard because of the buildup of fuel inside it. Almost no one cleans the crumb tray at the bottom. Those crumbs are dry and charred, and after many uses, they can spark and ignite the accumulated grease. It's the #1 cause of small fires in kitchens that seem inexplicable to their owners. The iguana has a functional third eye called the parietal eye, located on the top of its head. Although it doesn't form images like the other 2 eyes, it has its own retina and lens. It helps detect changes in light, shadows of aerial predators, and assists in regulating its circadian rhythm and hormone production based on the amount of solar radiation it receives. Macaque monkeys in Bali temples have learned to extort tourists like professional criminals. They steal glasses or mobile phones, not to play with them, but to use them as hostages. They know perfectly well that if they keep the object, the human will give them food in exchange. They have learned the concept of bartering and value a phone more than a cap because the ransom is juicier. Palm trees are not trees. Botanically, they are more closely related to grass, corn, or rice than to a pine or oak. They don't have real wood or growth rings. Their trunk is a column of fibrous tissue and conducting vessels. That's why they are so flexible that in a hurricane, they bend extremely without breaking, while a rigid tree usually snaps. Sunglasses didn't originate to protect from the sun, but to conceal emotions. The first versions, in the 11th century in China, were plates of smoky quartz used by judges in courts. Their purpose wasn't to protect the eyes from light, but to hide their facial expressions and reactions to testimonies, so they wouldn't give away clues about their final verdict. Supermarkets place milk and bread at the back of the store, and it's not by chance. It's pure sales engineering. These are the products everyone needs, essentials. By placing them at the back of the store, they force you to walk through all the aisles of whims, chips, cookies, and offers to get to the basics, maximizing impulse buys along the way. The orangutan has a hand that looks like a cartoon, with extremely long fingers and a ridiculously short thumb almost near the wrist. They don't need to pinch things like us. They need to be a hook. They can hang from a branch for hours without using any energy, because their hand automatically closes like a carabiner. They are basically furry hangers weighing 80 kilograms. Trains don't have seat belts because, paradoxically, it would be more dangerous. In a train, the danger isn't the braking, but the derailment. Railway safety studies indicate that in case of impact, it's safer for the passenger to be thrown against the seat in front, which is designed to absorb energy, than to be anchored to a seat whose frame could crush them. When a ferret is very excited or happy, it performs a series of frantic sideways jumps and crashes into the walls, making a sound called duking. Although it looks like it's gone crazy, in the wild this behavior served to confuse its prey. Rabbits would freeze watching the erratic movement while the ferret sneaked up to hunt them. Electric scooters or e-scooters are not a modern invention. The Autoped was the first motorized scooter in history, manufactured in New York in 1915. It had a gasoline engine, reached speeds of up to 18 miles per hour, and was used by the Postal Service and even by criminal gangs to escape through narrow alleys where police cars couldn't fit. Swedish surströmming is the most stinky food in the world. It's fermented herring in a can that smells so bad it is forbidden to open it inside buildings in Sweden. The can swells due to the gases from fermentation and can explode. Airlines prohibit it on flights because the cans burst with changes in pressure. Its smell is described as a mixture of death and sewage. The reticulated python is the longest snake in the world and can swallow a whole antelope. It has always been said that they dislocate their jaw to swallow, but that's a myth. In reality, they don't have a bone in their chin. Their lower jaw is separated into two independent halves connected by an elastic ligament. This allows them to open their mouths like a rubber net and envelop their prey. In 1967, the inventor of the ATM, John Shepard Barron, designed the system thinking of 6-digit passwords like military ones. But when testing it at home, his wife told him she couldn't remember more than 4 digits in a row. The inventor changed the global banking security standard to 4 digits exclusively because his wife couldn't memorize them. Cruise ships have secret jails. When 6,000 people are drinking alcohol for days, crimes happen. All modern cruise ships have a real cell called a brig on the lower decks, with bare steel walls, no windows, and a barred door. If you fight or steal, security guards lock you in there until the ship reaches the next port. The zipper on your pants has an automatic brake that almost no one knows about. If you leave the pull tab raised, the zipper can slip by itself with movement. But if you push the tab flat against the pants, a tiny metal hook locks between the teeth, blocking the zipper and physically making it impossible for it to fall down by itself. Bluefin tuna fetches insane prices in Japan. In 2019, a single giant bluefin tuna weighing 611 pounds was sold for $3.1 million at auction. That fish cost more than a luxury mansion. Sushi restaurants fiercely compete in these auctions, where the most expensive tuna is worth more than several sports cars. Fresh blueberries bounce like balls. Farmers traditionally drop them downstairs to separate the good ones from the rotten ones. The fresh ones bounce to the bottom, while the ripe or rotten ones stay stuck to the steps. You can try this at home by dropping a fresh blueberry on the floor and seeing how it bounces. If it doesn't bounce, it's already past its prime. Fatal familial insomnia is an extremely rare and terrifying genetic disease that affects the thalamus, the part of the brain that controls sleep. The patients progressively lose the ability to sleep, from mild insomnia to hallucinations, dementia, and ultimately death due to total exhaustion. Sleeping pills don't work because the brain is physically unable to enter the sleep phase. The thymus organ, located in the chest, is where your defense cells mature when you are a child. It is huge during childhood, but by the time puberty hits, the body considers it has trained enough defenses, and the thymus starts to shrink until it becomes fat. In elderly adults, it is virtually non-existent, which explains why the immune system weakens with age. The glass of bus stops is designed to break into thousands of small, rounded pieces instead of sharp splinters. This is achieved through a heat treatment that puts the surface under controlled tension. So if a car crashes into the stop, no one dies from being cut by a sharp piece of glass. It's invisible safety engineering that saves lives. Source amnesia is a very common psychological failure where we remember information but completely forget where we learned it. This is dangerous because it makes us believe fake news or rumors without questioning them. Since we don't remember the source, the brain processes the data as a general truth simply because it feels familiar to have heard it before. The toucan's beak represents up to a third of its body, but is very light because it has a honeycomb structure. Its main function is not just to eat, but to regulate body temperature. The beak is full of blood vessels that the bird can dilate to release heat or contract to conserve it, working as a biological radiator perfectly calibrated by nature. Bats are mammals and feed their babies with milk. The mothers leave their babies in the cave to go hunt insects and produce milk. When they return, they are able to find their own baby among millions of other bats thanks to recognizing its specific scent and its particular chirp. It's like finding a needle in a haystack using only smell and hearing. Lion cubs are born completely vulnerable and 100% dependent on their mother. They are born with their eyes closed and don't start to see until they are between 7 and 11 days old. Their fur has dark spots called rosettes that act as camouflage, so predators don't spot them among the shadows of the underbrush while the lioness is away hunting. In many Caribbean islands like Bermuda, the roofs of houses are stepped in bright white. It is not decoration. What the stepped design slows down the speed of rainwater and directs it to underground cisterns for storage. The white color reflects the sun's heat and helps purify the water using ultraviolet rays before it is consumed. Cats have an auxiliary organ for smelling called the Jacobson's organ, located in the palate. When you see a cat open its mouth with a strange expression, it is sending scents to this special organ. This allows it to literally taste the air to detect pheromones and detailed chemical information that its normal nose cannot process properly. Your television attracts dust much faster than any other furniture in your home because of the static charge generated by the panel. Even modern screens create a constant movement of electrons that produces an electromagnetic field, acting like a magnet for dust particles floating in the room. That is why it always seems dirtier than the other furniture. The horned lizard has a defense mechanism that seems straight out of a horror movie. It shoots jets of blood from its own eyes when it feels threatened. It can increase blood pressure in its head enough to rupture the capillaries in its eyelids, shooting a stream with a terrible chemical taste over 3 feet, designed specifically to disgust coyotes and foxes. Alcohol does not actually warm you up, even if it feels that way. When you drink, alcohol dilates your blood vessels and brings warm blood to the surface of the skin, giving that sensation of heat. However, what is really happening is that your body loses internal heat to the outside much faster. In a cold place, this dangerously increases the risk of hypothermia. Cathedral gargoyles were not just religious ornaments meant to scare the faithful. Their main function was pure hydraulic engineering. They are stone spouts that extend from facades to throw rainwater away from the church walls. This way, water does not run down the stone, preventing moisture from rotting the mortar and weakening the building's foundation. Your skeleton is not static and unchanging. It is living tissue that constantly changes. Cells called osteoclasts destroy old or damaged bone, while osteoblasts create new bone. This process is so constant that every 10 years, approximately all the bone tissue in your body has been completely replaced. You basically have a new skeleton every decade. Almost all world maps use the Mercator projection, which inflates the size of countries as they move away from the equator. That is why Greenland looks as big as Africa. In reality, Africa is 14 times larger. Within the outline of Africa, you could perfectly fit China, the United States, India, Japan, and almost all of Europe combined without any problem. Train wheels are not straight cylinders as they seem. They have a subtle conical shape. This inclination allows the train to take curves stably without needing a differential like cars. On a curve, the outer wheel uses the wider part of the cone to automatically travel farther than the inner wheel naturally. A lion's tongue is like sandpaper made of flesh and bone. If a lion licked your hand, it would tear the skin off in seconds. And its tongue is covered with spines called filiform papillae, made of keratin, like your nails. They point backward and are so hard that the lion uses them to scrape the bones of its prey and extract every last gram of meat. In Poland, there is a village called Sulosowa, where almost all of its 6,000 inhabitants live on a single 9-mile-long street. All the houses are aligned along this road, and behind each home extend very long and narrow strips of farmland. From the air, it creates a visually unique landscape that seems impossible to plan. The flower Cosmos atrasanguineus is a Mexican dark garnet-colored flower that emits a scent of vanilla and milk chocolate that is extremely realistic when the sun warms it at the end of the day. Unfortunately, it no longer exists in the wild. Around all specimens in gardens around the world come from a single plant that was cloned in 1902. The hot hand fallacy is very common in casinos and sports. It is the belief that if someone has a streak of success, like winning 3 times in a row at poker, they have a higher chance of winning the 4th. Statistically, the odds are exactly the same on each independent attempt. But the human brain is programmed to look for patterns of luck where there is only pure chance. You cannot hum with your nose blocked. Close your mouth, pinch your nose with your fingers, and try. You can only produce sound for half a second until the air fills your mouth and stops. The vibration of the vocal cords requires a continuous escape route through the nasal passages to produce the sustained sound of humming. It is anatomically impossible without that exit. The giant isopod is basically a pill bug the size of a small dog, up to 30 inches long. They live on the dark, cold ocean floor with a metabolism so slow and efficient that an individual in captivity in Japan survived 5 full years without taking a single bite of food before dying. Its energy efficiency is astonishing. The lost world of Roraima in Venezuela is a completely flat-topped mountain surrounded by vertical cliffs over 1,300 feet high. It is so isolated from the rest of the world that it has developed its own completely independent alien ecosystem. 80% of the insects and plants living on its summit do not exist anywhere else on Earth. Walruses weigh more than 2,000 pounds but can sleep floating in open water without sinking or making any effort. The secret lies in elastic air sacs in their throats that they can inflate like giant balloons. They carry a built-in biological float in their neck that allows them to rest peacefully in the middle of the icy ocean. Crocodiles swallow large, heavy stones called gastroliths that stay permanently in their stomachs. This works exactly like a submarine's ballast. The extra weight allows them to sink lower in the water effortlessly, leaving only the eyes and nostrils exposed to ambush unsuspecting prey perfectly. The megamouth shark is a giant 5-meter shark discovered by pure chance in 1976. The inside of its enormous mouth has a bioluminescent strip that glows in the darkness of the depths. Small fish and plankton see the light, swim toward it, and enter its stomach without suspecting anything. On the island of Miyakojima in Japan, there is an active volcano that constantly releases lethal sulfur gas. Its inhabitants refuse to leave the island, so the government requires them by law to always carry a gas mask. When the island sirens sound, everyone must put it on immediately or risk suffocating in the street. Sperm whales sleep in the most surreal way in the ocean. They do not swim while sleeping, but position themselves completely vertically, head up or down, and float motionless in groups. During these periods of about 15 minutes, they shut down half of their brain and stop breathing temporarily, appearing like a forest of underwater columns. Giant ship anchors do not work by digging into the seabed like a hook. The anchor itself is almost irrelevant. What really keeps the ship in place is the enormous weight of the chain. So much chain is released that it lies on the seabed. The friction and the weight of tons of steel on the sand prevent the ship from moving. You never see a baby pigeon because the chicks do not leave the nest until almost 30 days after hatching. Pigeons nest in very hidden holes like roofs and bridges, and when the chicks first venture out, they already have the exact size and feathers of an adult. It is practically impossible to distinguish them from older pigeons. Outer space is surprisingly close. The Kármán line, the official boundary of space, is only 62 miles high. If you could point your car straight up and drive at a highway speed of 62 miles per hour, it would take exactly 1 hour to reach space. It is literally closer to you than many nearby cities. Your car seat belt locks thanks to a small, loose metal ball inside the mechanism. When the car brakes suddenly, inertia causes that ball to shoot forward, pushing a lever that locks the teeth of the gear in a fraction of a second. It is pure mechanical pendulum action with no electrical component. The dead man's pedal on trains is a relentless safety system. The driver must keep pressing a pedal or touching a button every few seconds continuously. If they have a heart attack, faint, or fall asleep and release the pedal, the train's computer automatically applies the emergency brakes to prevent a massive derailment without human intervention. The water you are drinking right now passed through a dinosaur. The Earth's water cycle is a 100% closed system where water is neither created nor destroyed, only recycled. Considering that dinosaurs dominated the planet drinking and excreting for over 160 million years, it is a statistical certainty that every molecule in your glass passed through their digestive system. Eggs are sold differently in Europe and the United States. In the United States, they must be chemically washed before sale, which removes the natural protective cuticle of the shell, making it porous and requiring refrigeration. In Europe, washing is prohibited. Eggs are sold with their natural protection intact, so they can remain outside the fridge without spoiling. The cornea is the only living part of the human body without a blood supply, because if it had blood vessels, we could not see clearly through it. It takes oxygen directly from the outside air, dissolved in tears. That is why if you sleep with contact lenses in, you wake up with red eyes, because the eye creates emergency veins trying to breathe. The manatee does not have a swim bladder like fish. To rise and sink in the water without using energy swimming, it regulates its buoyancy by retaining methane gas in its enormous intestines. When it wants to float near the surface, it holds the gas to inflate like a balloon. When it wants to sink to sleep at the bottom, it simply releases the gas. It is an intestinal flotation system. Ants are immune to falls. If you drop an ant from an airplane at 10,000 meters, it will land on the asphalt and walk away without a scratch. Being so incredibly light, its terminal velocity is barely 4 miles per hour. At that minimal speed, the impact on the ground does not have enough force to break its exoskeleton. Airport control tower windows are never straight. They are always tilted 15 degrees downward. It is not for aerodynamics, but for visual safety. At night, controllers have dozens of bright screens on inside. If the glass were straight, it would act like a mirror, reflecting the screens and blinding the controllers watching the runways. Coins do not actually smell like metal. When you grab a handful of coins and smell your hands, what you perceive is an instant chemical reaction. The metal acts as a catalyst, causing the oils and lipids of your own skin to break down and oxidize on contact. That metallic smell you think you detect is literally the scent of your own skin, breaking down at a microscopic level. Rome has more than 2,500 public fountains that flow continuously 24 hours a day for centuries. It is not careless waste. The city's underground aqueduct network depends on that constant flow to function. If the taps were turned off, the immense pressure of stagnant water would burst the millennia-old pipes under the Roman streets. Vicuña wool, considered the gold of the Incas, works under the microscope like a coffee thermos. Its hairs have microscopic scales that interlock perfectly, trapping tiny pockets of static air inside. It works exactly like the vacuum walls of a thermos, while insulating body heat from extreme cold at 13,000 feet of altitude flawlessly. In 2010, a volcano with an almost unpronounceable name, Eyjafjallajökull, paralyzed the world without firing a single bomb. Its ash cloud was enough. The eruption forced the cancellation of nearly 1,000,000 flights in Europe in less than a week, stranding millions of passengers and collapsing global logistics. Suddenly, we understood that a snow-capped peak in Iceland could bring the most advanced air system on the planet to its knees in a matter of hours. The great hammerhead shark looks like a video game monster. It can reach up to about 20 feet in length, and its T-shaped head can immobilize rays as if they were living carpets. But that same grandeur is its downfall. Its fins are highly valued in the shark fin soup market. and the species has suffered declines of over 80% in just a few decades, to the point of being considered critically endangered. In 2010, the French macaron dethroned the cupcake as king of Instagrammable desserts. Pastry chefs like Ladurée and Pierre Hermé transformed it into a luxury item. Small, crisp meringue discs filled with pistachio, rose, or experimental flavors that resemble pastel-colored jewels. The Aral Sea is one of the most brutal examples of what a bad political decision can do. It lost more than 90% of its volume in just a few decades after its rivers were diverted to irrigate cotton during the Soviet era. What was once a sea is now a salt desert filled with stranded ships and villages sickened by toxic dust storms. The Solar Dynamics Observatory, launched in 2010, is essentially a never-blinking eye watching the Sunday. It constantly records ultra-high-resolution images of eruptions, plasma loops, and sunspots, allowing for a better understanding of the storms that can affect satellites, GPS, and power grids on Earth. Senegalese cuisine began to gain global attention thanks to one dish, tiboudien, a rice dish with fish and vegetables that originated in fishing communities on the island of Saint Louis. In 2021, it was inscribed on UNESCO's list of intangible cultural heritage of humanity, and since then, chefs and festivals have used it as a calling card to tell the world. West Africa also has haute cuisine. You just haven't seen it yet. The Lut Desert in Iran looks like a scene from Mars, and it almost is in terms of temperature. NASA satellites measured the highest surface temperature ever recorded there, about 159 degrees Fahrenheit in 2005, and subsequent data suggest even higher peaks. Marion Cotillard voluntarily altered her appearance to become Edith Piaf in La Vie en Rose. She lost weight, changed her posture and gait, shaved parts of her eyebrows, and studied every gesture and breath of the singer. Her transformation was so radical that in 2008 she won the Oscar for Best Actress, only the second time that award had been given for a performance in a language other than English. The mimic octopus seems like a science fiction character, but it is real and lives in the shallow waters of the Indo-Pacific. It is capable of imitating the shape, color, and even the way it moves of up to 10 to 15 different animals, including lionfish, flounders, and venomous sea snakes. It stretches its arms, flattens itself, changes its pattern, and suddenly it is no longer an octopus. It is something else, extremely dangerous, that predators prefer to avoid. The Museum of Islamic Art in Doha, which opened in 2008, was a warning to the world that Qatar wanted to be more than just oil and football. I.M. Pei, the architect of the Louvre Pyramid, spent months traveling through the Arab world to distill the essence of Islamic architecture and condensed it into a geometric building that floats on the sea, connected to the city by a walkway. The liger, a cross between a male lion and a female tiger, is the largest feline in history, but it exists due to a genetic error. In lions, the gene that tells the body to stop growing comes from the mother. In tigers, it comes from the father. Crossing them neither provides that stop gene. The liger never stops growing during its life, reaching 900 pounds until its heart cannot support the weight. At the Palace of Versailles, the Sun King built the most ostentatious palace in the world, lined with gold and thousands of mirrors. But the design had a brutal engineering flaw. There were no bathrooms for the thousands of courtiers. The aristocracy relieved themselves behind velvet curtains, on the stairs or in corners. The palace smelled like a latrine, which is why the French court invented super strong floral perfumes. And with this, we reach the end of this video. Like it, subscribe to Zarpado if you haven't yet, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single curious fact. Share this video with someone who loves learning new things. They will thank you. See you in the next video.